The Death Star hums with power, but in the shadows of fate, one step was altered. A duel not meant to be. In another thread of time, the old master did not wait in exile. The last of the Jedi Order rose from silence to face the monster his own era had birthed. Yoda, ancient, unyielding, the keeper of 9 centuries of wisdom. Vader, fallen, chosen one, encased in armor, a storm of rage and sorrow. On this path, the sabers that never clashed are ignited, and the galaxy trembles at a battle written only in whispers. Here lies a secret history, a forbidden imagining where destiny bends. Would the Empire's iron fist have broken sooner? Would the rebellion's fire have burned brighter? Or would darkness have tightened its grip forever? In this vision, teacher meets lost student, light meets shadow, and the fate of all that is yet to come hangs on a single duel. This is the story of what might have been had Yoda faced Darth Vader instead of Obi-Wan. Imagine this. The Death Star looms in the background, lightsabers ignite, and instead of Obi-Wan Kenobi stepping forward to face Darth Vader on the Death Star, it's Yoda, the 900-year-old Grandmaster of the Jedi. That single change sparks endless questions. Who would win? What would happen to Luke, Leia, and the Rebellion? This kind of what-if scenario is more than just fan curiosity. It's the lifeblood of the Star Wars community. Star Wars has always thrived on its mythology. Fans don't just watch the films. They live inside them, questioning the choices characters made and imagining the ripple effects of different outcomes. And alternate timelines, especially those involving high-stakes duels, are the ultimate fuel for speculation. They invite us to step into George Lucas's sandbox and ask, what if destiny wasn't set in stone? Think about it. Obi-Wan and Vader's duel in A New Hope is iconic, but it's also restrained. It's a meeting of past and present, teacher and fallen student. Now, swap Obi-Wan with Yoda, and suddenly you have an entirely different energy. Yoda represents the pinnacle of Jedi wisdom and mastery, someone who has faced Sidious himself. Fans can't resist this matchup because it forces us to weigh pure skill against raw power. But there's a deeper reason why people crave these timelines. They're not just about battles. They're about rewriting fate. Star Wars is ultimately a story about choice, redemption, and the consequences of action or inaction. When fans explore what-ifs, they're really testing the foundations of the saga. Would Vader's redemption still happen if Yoda had been the one to confront him? Would the Emperor's reign have collapsed earlier? Would Luke even have become the hero we know today? This is where fan passion and community engagement explode. A simple question like, what if Yoda fought Vader instead of Obi-Wan, doesn't just lead to one answer, it leads to thousands. Every theory thread, every Reddit post, every YouTube breakdown becomes part of a massive, living conversation. Fans create animations, artwork, and even entire fan films around these hypotheticals. And that's what makes this type of content so magnetic. It's not just entertainment, it's participatory storytelling. By posing an alternate scenario, you're inviting the audience to join in the creation of Star Wars itself. And let's be real, that's what keeps people hooked. They don't just want to watch your video. They want to pause it, comment their theory, and argue with strangers across the globe about who would walk away from that duel. So when we ask, what if Yoda fought Vader instead of Obi-Wan? We're not just speculating. We're pulling at the threads of destiny itself. And in Star Wars, destiny has always been just fragile enough to make us wonder, what if it all went differently? Picture the scene. Yoda's small frame, cane tossed aside, green lightsaber igniting with that crisp bolt. Across from him, Darth Vader towers in black armor, the hiss of his respirator echoing through the chamber. It's not just a clash of Jedi and Sith. It's the meeting of two living legends, each representing the pinnacle of their side of the Force. To really understand what this duel might have looked like, we need to break down their power levels, strengths, and limitations. Yoda, even at the twilight of his life, was still unmatched in his connection to the Force. We saw his agility in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, where he moved like a blur of green light, defying his age. His mastery wasn't about brute strength, but about balance, an intuitive understanding of the Force that let him anticipate attacks before they landed. When it comes to lightsaber combat, Yoda was a master of Form 4, Ataru. It was all about speed, acrobatics, and unpredictability. That style made him a nightmare for slower opponents. Now, let's contrast that with Vader. As Anakin Skywalker, he was one of the most gifted duelists the galaxy had ever seen. But after Mustafar, everything changed. Encased in life support armor, Vader's speed was reduced, his mobility limited. And yet, these very limitations shaped him into something even more dangerous. Instead of relying on agility, Vader honed his style into raw, overwhelming power. His strikes became thunderous, his endurance unmatched. In essence, he became a wall of destruction. You don't outdance Vader, you survive his storm. So what happens when Yoda's lightning-fast precision collides with Vader's brutal force? That's where the matchup becomes fascinating. On one hand, Yoda's agility could allow him to dance around Vader's heavy swings, striking at weak points in his armor. We've seen him leap circles around opponents far larger than himself. On the other hand, Vader's sheer durability and relentless offense might bring Yoda down. Remember, even the most agile fighter can tire, and Yoda was well into his 800s during the original trilogy era. But this isn't just about lightsabers, it's about the Force. Yoda's command of telekinesis, mind tricks, and sheer energy manipulation was legendary. He could hurl massive objects, absorb lightning, and even sense ripples in Destiny itself. Vader, though, was no slouch. His Force choke alone became iconic, and his raw strength in the dark side allowed him to overpower opponents with terrifying ease. If this fight ever turned into a battle of Force abilities, it would come down to finesse versus brute strength. Could Yoda's refined mastery overcome the sheer tidal wave of Vader's dark side rage? And here's where fans get hooked. There is no single clear winner. Each has a claim to victory, and it depends on which battlefield, lightsabers or Force powers, they dominate. But one thing's certain, it wouldn't be a quick fight. This clash would shake the walls of the Death Star and echo through Star Wars history as one of the most legendary duels ever imagined. Let's take a step back and imagine the ripple effects. If Yoda had fought Vader instead of Obi-Wan on the Death Star, we wouldn't just be talking about a cool duel. We'd be talking about a complete rewriting of Star Wars history. The outcome of that battle could have changed the fate of the rebellion, the rise of Luke Skywalker, and even the fall of the Emperor himself. First, consider the tactical side. Obi-Wan sacrificed himself to allow Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewbacca to escape. It was a strategic move that gave the rebellion its future. If Yoda had stepped in, would he have made the same sacrifice? That's questionable. Yoda wasn't the same type of mentor as Obi-Wan. Instead of martyrdom, he may have sought to directly end Vader, and by extension, cripple the Empire. Imagine if Vader fell in that moment. The Empire would lose its greatest enforcer, the figure who struck fear across the galaxy. That alone could have tipped the balance of the galactic civil war. But then comes the flip side. What if Yoda lost? We know Vader is relentless, and Yoda, while powerful, was past his physical prime during the events of the original trilogy. A defeat here would have been catastrophic. Not only would the rebellion have lost its most powerful Jedi, but the symbolic blow would have been immense. Imagine Vader walking back to Palpatine with Yoda's lightsaber as a trophy. The Emperor's propaganda machine would have had a field day, declaring the Jedi utterly extinct. Morale within the rebellion could have plummeted. Now let's talk about Luke. Obi-Wan's death was a pivotal turning point in his journey. That moment of loss hardened him, gave him the motivation to truly step into his destiny. Without Obi-Wan's sacrifice, Luke's path might have looked very different. If Yoda survived the duel and escaped with the others, Luke might never have gone to Dagobah. He wouldn't have trained under Yoda, because Yoda would have already been at his side. That could have accelerated Luke's growth, or it could have left him unprepared to face Vader when the time came. And here's where it gets fascinating, Palpatine's long game. The Emperor always manipulated events to his favor. If Yoda killed Vader, Palpatine would have simply sought a new apprentice. Perhaps he'd have turned Luke sooner. Perhaps he would have created a darker, more cunning enforcer to replace Vader's brute force. On the other hand, if Vader killed Yoda, Palpatine's grip on Vader would have tightened, snuffing out any chance of Anakin's redemption. That single duel could have erased the possibility of balance returning to the Force. This is why what ifs matter so much. They aren't just about who swings the lightsaber faster. They're about rewriting the destiny of entire galaxies. Yoda versus Vader isn't just a fight. It's a fork in the road, one that could have led to a rebellion crushed or an empire crumbling far earlier than we ever saw. Strip away the lightsabers for a moment. Forget the Force powers. At the core of Yoda versus Vader lies something deeper, an emotional clash of legacy, betrayal, and heartbreak. Because this wouldn't just be another Jedi versus Sith duel. It would be the master of the Jedi Order facing the ultimate failure of his era, the fall of Anakinskywalker. Think about Yoda's perspective. For centuries, he was the guardian of Jedi tradition. He trained generations of knights, including Count Dooku, who also fell to the dark side. But the fall of Anakin was the greatest wound of all. Yoda had sensed the danger, had warned against Skywalker's attachment and fear, but still, he couldn't prevent the prophecy's chosen one from becoming the galaxy's greatest threat. To face Vader in battle would be, in many ways, to confront his own shortcomings as a teacher. Every swing of a lightsaber would carry the weight of regret. For Vader, the emotional storm would be just as heavy. Underneath the mask, he was still Anakin, broken, bitter, and scarred by choices he couldn't undo. Facing Obi-Wan on the Death Star, Vader had the satisfaction of confronting the man who left him to die on Mustafar. But Yoda? Yoda was different. Yoda represented wisdom, authority, and the very order Anakin once tried to belong to. To duel Yoda would be like fighting the embodiment of everything Anakin had lost. In his mind, defeating Yoda wouldn't just prove his strength, it would justify his fall. This emotional weight would make the duel unlike any other in Star Wars. It wouldn't be as personal as Vader versus Luke, but it would still cut deep. Imagine the dialogue. Yoda pleading for Vader to see the truth, Vader responding with bitterness and rage, insisting the Jedi failed him. These aren't just words, they're daggers. The subtext would be just as deadly as the lightsabers. And here's the tragedy. Both characters are mirrors of failure. Yoda failed to stop the fall of the Chosen One, and Vader failed to fulfill the promise of that destiny. In another life, they could have been allies fighting side by side to destroy the Sith once and for all. Instead, they're locked in a battle that symbolizes the crumbling of everything the Jedi once stood for. For the audience, this emotional core is what makes the hypothetical so gripping. Sure, we want to see flips, force pushes, and glowing blades clashing. But what really keeps us glued is the human story underneath the spectacle. Every viewer would wonder, could Yoda's words pierce Vader's armor better than Obi-Wan's did? Could Yoda, with his unmatched wisdom, plant the first seed of doubt in Vader's heart? Or would the emotional burden be too heavy, pushing Vader deeper into the dark? This is the duel fans crave, not just because of power levels, but because of feelings. It's not just a battle of light and dark. It's a battle of guilt, failure, and what might have been. Star Wars is more than just a franchise. It's a living, breathing universe kept alive by the imaginations of its fans. And nothing proves that more than debates like, what if Yoda fought Vader instead of Obi-Wan? Decades after the original trilogy first hit theaters, this single question still sparks videos, comment threads, and late-night arguments across the fandom. Why? Because it taps into the perfect mix of mystery, passion, and endless possibilities. Fan theories thrive on gaps in the story. George Lucas gave us the big moments, but he also left enough space for speculation to bloom. We know Yoda and Vader never crossed blades in canon, but that very absence makes the idea irresistible. Fans love to fill in the blanks with their own interpretations. One fan imagines Yoda defeating Vader in a dazzling display of acrobatics. Another envisions Vader overpowering Yoda with sheer dark side strength. Neither is wrong, and that freedom fuels the discussion endlessly. The legacy of both characters also plays a huge role. Yoda represents the highest ideals of the Jedi: wisdom, patience, mastery of the Force. Vader, meanwhile, symbolizes the tragedy of power corrupted, of light consumed by darkness. When fans debate who would win, they aren't just debating combat mechanics. They're debating philosophies. It's light versus dark, hope versus despair, destiny versus choice. That's why these discussions never lose steam. They resonate on a personal level. And then there's the community aspect. A single what-if video can rack up thousands of comments, with fans adding details the creator might not have even considered. Someone brings up Vader's cybernetic weaknesses. Another points out Yoda's declining stamina in Revenge of the Sith. Someone else dives into lore from comics or novels that most casual fans have never heard of. This collective storytelling turns a simple duel into a collaborative saga. Every time the theory resurfaces, it feels fresh because the conversation never ends. On top of that, Lucasfilm and Disney subtly encourage this speculation. The success of Star Wars, what if style projects and other fandoms, like Marvel, has shown just how hungry audiences are for alternate timelines. Star Wars has its own version through legend stories and non-canon material. Every new series, every comic, every piece of lore adds another spark to these debates. Fans begin to wonder, will we ever see an animated what if where Yoda crosses paths with Vader? Could it show up in a video game or a novel? The possibilities keep the fire alive. Ultimately, the debate isn't about finding a winner. It's about celebrating Star Wars itself. The characters, the choices, the emotions, and the endless what-ifs that make this galaxy so addictive. Yoda versus Vader will never die as a theory because it captures everything fans love: action, drama, philosophy, and the thrill of imagining a universe just slightly different than the one we know. And that's why this question continues to echo across generations. Every time a new fan discovers Star Wars, they eventually stumble onto it, and the cycle starts again. It's not just a battle. It's a legacy of speculation that keeps Star Wars alive in the hearts of millions.